Welcome to Therapy Facts with Dr. Jenn. Today we are talking about the interview between Shannon Sharp and Amanda Seals. Amanda talked on the Shannon Sharp interview about being diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. And she attributed that diagnosis to many of the social ills that she has experienced during her lifetime. She talks about being 42 years old before she was diagnosed, and how since then she has been doing everything she can to learn about the diagnosis and the syndrome of symptoms. Say that 10 times fast. Syndrome of symptoms, in order to better navigate the social terrain in which she finds herself. So, this series is going to focus on Amanda's self-proclaimed diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder and my reaction to the various challenges that people with ASD, as we call it, the various challenges that they experience that are similar and different from what Amanda has pointed out herself, and then also what we were able to see in this interview. So, the most prevalent or core symptom in ASD is difficulty with social interaction. No surprise there. For different people, the symptom range will look different. And so, when talking about what Amanda described for herself and what we were able to observe in the interview, that does not cover every person who has social challenges as a result of autism spectrum disorder. So I'm only reacting to what Amanda described and what was observed. So, with difficulties with social cues, which is the first point in the series, or social interactions, comes the core difficulty with social cues. And social cues typically are communicated all throughout any social interaction and can be observed by a person whose brain allows them to observe or allows them to comprehend in mostly unspoken ways. And so someone typically learns how to, for example, come into a social situation. They can learn that or enter a social situation like coming to someone's house for a chat, as Shannon Sharp tries to make his interview experience. Coming by, sitting on his couch, he creates a safe space and he wants you to talk about whatever you want to talk about. And in fact, a lot of people end up telling him things that they have never talked about before. And so being able to come into that social situation can be learned through observation, observing others. It can be learned through actual guidance with someone saying, okay, this is how we do that. For example, parents often say when children come into a room or come into someone's home, they'll say to a little child, speak, at least speak. And sometimes it's, hey, go, speak to your grandma, give her a hug. Speak to the teacher, say good morning, etc. And so we start off as little kids very frequently being given social instructions. But even without being given social instructions, we have the opportunity to observe how social interactions go. The challenge is that children and adults with autism spectrum disorder, which begins in childhood and is thought to be something that people are born with, their brain doesn't catch those cues. They don't necessarily catch that guidance and then internalize it for use going forward in the future. And so very often, if children with autism spectrum disorder are taught to speak when you come into the room, give your grandmother a hug, etc., they may or may not comply with the request. Or if they do comply with the request, they may not understand what is it all for. And so each time they go into a new situation, they have to be told the same thing, or they don't generalize their behavior. And so here you have, for example, Amanda Seals, 42-year-old who's recently diagnosed with ASD. She has plenty of examples of people coming into Shannon Sharp's club Shay Shay and joining him in discussion on his couch. And that is where she made her first error. When she joined him, when the interview started, she had already triggered him. She had already made a social faux pas where she said to him, "My goal was to make you comfortable." And he said, "How are you going to make me comfortable in my own house?" She didn't understand the social cue of how to enter into Club Shay Shay, even though there are plenty of interviews where people were showing her, hey, this is how it works. So he was triggered from the beginning with being made to feel discomfort or uncomfortable in his own house by Amanda's stated intention of making him comfortable. So then they were off to the races. What she did not understand about entering his space is he simply wants her to accept his hospitality. However, her brain did not perceive that. And even if she's seen other interviews, her brain still told her that she had to do something different in order to enter his space. And those types of social cue misses are a hallmark of autism spectrum disorder, or ASD. Those are very common and they are core features. And so you will have someone who approaches social situations and they seem tone deaf, or that they don't understand what is going on in the social situation. And Amanda described that continuously throughout the interview. And so what we do in the world of training for people with autism spectrum disorder is we train them to be able to execute the behaviors that are associated with the social cues that they either don't detect or that they don't understand. And so there's no cure for autism spectrum disorder. However, people can be taught to behave appropriately in ways that allow them to access the natural positive reinforcers in the environment. So had Amanda been aware, and lack of self-awareness is also another symptom of autism spectrum disorder. I keep wanting to say Asperger's, which is what she said, but Asperger's is actually not a thing anymore. However, we will touch on what Asperger's is now in another video. But we just really say autism spectrum disorder. And so a core symptom of autism spectrum disorder is not being able to respond to or to order yourself to participate socially in ways that people understand and ways that other people prefer. And so being able to do the behavior, whether you understand it or not, puts a person with ASD in a better position to be able to fit in. Now, there's a lot to be said for being your own person, being an individual and standing apart from the crowd. There's a lot to be said for that. But there's also a lot to be said for understanding how to fit in. Because when you understand how to fit in, then you have more of a choice. You can choose to fit in or you can choose not to fit in. But when you don't understand how to fit in, then you only have the choice of not fitting in. Now, Amanda talks about having a whole slew of people who love her. and who accept her for who she is. Being able to learn how to fit in allows her an opportunity to decide when she wants to fit in, which opens up a whole nother 50% of possibility for her versus the life of never fitting in that she is already experiencing.